A figure of speech is something rather strange in some ways. It is a way of talking about something by not talking about it directly. And if you think about it, that is rather weird. That is, think about how if I want to talk about my car, I want to tell you that something's going on with my car, so I say something happened to my car. I call it a car because that's what it is. But we're using a figure of speech, we use some other term or phrase to be able to refer to that. So I might, instead of talking about my car, talk about my wheels. That's a figure of speech called a synecdoche, which we'll cover in another video. And so what we do with the figure of speech is we say, let's talk about this thing in terms of something else. That can seem kind of confusing. Why is it you don't talk about it directly? Why would you use something else? Well, what happens is when we use figures of speech sometimes, it helps us think about the object that we want to discuss in a whole different way. It allows us to understand different aspects of it. So in the textbook on page 865, we've got this segment from Macbeth. And in that, he's going to talk about how life is a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and then is heard no more. So the first thing he's going to say in there is life's but a walking shadow. And so that becomes a rather interesting figure of speech. We can say life is a walking shadow. It's like something else. It's like a shadow. So what is it that we can think about when we think about shadow? And again, we already talked about when we were looking at connotation and denotation. We thought about what it is that shadow means. What are some of the connotations of shadow? And so when we talk about life as being a shadow, a walking shadow more specifically in this case, when we talk about that, some of those ideas about shadow relate back to life. And so we can see that Shakespeare has this rather, at least in Macbeth, has this rather dark view of what life is. It's like a shadow. But it also can be rather, if we think about it, a walking shadow. Life can be rather thin. Again, a shadow is just the absence of light. It's going to be dark. It's not going to be substantial. It's not like you have the real person there. It's not like life is the real thing. It's just going to be something that is going to be, again, rather thin and unsubstantial. And so that helps us understand how Shakespeare wants us to be thinking about life in this particular passage. And that's what usually happens with figurative language, is that we say, look, I don't understand how you want to think about this thing. I don't understand your particular views about life. So why don't we put them in terms of something that I do understand? I don't know how you think about life, but I understand something about a shadow. He also goes on, as we said before, to say a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage and is heard no more. A player is an actor, and so we can think about that our life is like a bad actor that walks around on the stage, he does a really bad job of it, and then disappears. And so then we could think about our life in the same way. Our life's like a bad actor. We go through everything that happens in our lives. It seems like we're doing a good job, but everybody else is looking at it and saying, no, it's not really doing that good of a job. And then our life is over. It disappears. And so, again, Shakespeare has this rather specific vision about life, and he's going to be able to explore it by using these metaphors of a shadow and a poor player.